The helicopter blades hadn't even stopped spinning when the dog began to growl. It wasn't the loud, aggressive kind of growl people expect from a military working dog. It was low, vibrating, almost broken, the sound of something that was terrified of losing the only thing it had left in the world. Blood soaked through the stretcher beneath the unconscious Navy SEAL, dripping onto the landing pad in dark, uneven drops, while medics rushed forward with urgency. But every time someone reached for the wounded man, the Belgian Malinois planted its paws wider, teeth bared, body shaking with exhaustion and fury. No one could get close. If you believe in loyalty, in second chances, and in the quiet heroes who don't wear capes, take a moment right now to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us what humanity really looks like. The dog's name was Rex, though most of the operators called him Ghost. He had served alongside Chief Petty Officer Daniel Mercer for nearly 4 years, through deserts, mountains, night raids, and missions that would never appear in any history book. They were more than handler and K9. They were a unit inside a unit, bonded through trust that only life and death moments could forge. Now Mercer lay unconscious, his chest rising in shallow, uneven breaths, his uniform shredded and soaked with blood. Shrapnel wounds. Internal bleeding. Possible spinal trauma. The medics knew the list before they even finished the initial assessment. What they didn't know was how to reach him without provoking the dog into an attack. Rex's fur was matted with dirt and blood, not all of it Mercer's. The dog himself was injured, a deep cut along his shoulder and burns on one flank, but he refused treatment. His entire body leaned protectively over his handler, eyes darting between every approaching stranger with raw, animal panic. Time was slipping away. Inside the emergency trauma bay, tension built like a tightening wire. Doctors argued in hushed urgency. Sedatives were considered for the dog, but no one wanted to risk harming a trained military K9 unless absolutely necessary. Meanwhile Mercer's vitals were dropping. Every minute without intervention increased the risk of irreversible damage, or worse. That was when the rookie nurse stepped forward. Her name was Emma Carter, 24 years old, barely 6 months into her first assignment at the military hospital. She had grown up in a small coastal town, far from war zones, far from helicopters and trauma alerts. Until that day, her most stressful moments involved paperwork mistakes and nervous first attempts at 4 placements. But something about the scene in front of her, the wounded soldier, the desperate dog, pulled her forward before she fully realized what she was doing. At first, no one noticed her approach. Everyone's attention was locked on Rex's teeth, on Mercer's failing monitors, on the impossible situation unfolding. Emma moved slowly, carefully, keeping her hands visible and her body low to the ground, instincts she didn't even remember learning guiding her movements. Rex's growl intensified the moment she entered his space. His ears flattened. His muscles tensed. The room froze. Then Emma spoke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet phrase, barely above a whisper, a string of words that sounded meaningless to everyone else in the room. But Rex reacted instantly. His ears flicked forward. The growl stopped mid-vibration. Confusion replaced aggression in his eyes. Emma repeated the phrase, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. It was a unit code, a short, specific verbal signal used by certain special operations teams to indicate safety after high-threat encounters. A reassurance command taught to both handlers and dogs, "You're safe. Stand down. I've got him." No one in that room understood how she knew it. But Rex did. Slowly, hesitantly, the dog lowered his head. His body remained tense, but he stepped back just enough for Emma to reach Mercer's shoulder. She placed her hand gently against the wounded man, maintaining eye contact with Rex the entire time, repeating the code phrase like a promise. Within seconds, the medical team surged forward. What followed was chaos, controlled chaos, the kind trauma teams are trained for. Tubes, monitors, oxygen masks, rapid blood transfusions. Orders flew across the room. Surgeons were called. Mercer was rushed toward the operating theater. And Rex tried to follow. Security attempted to stop him, but Emma intervened again, crouching beside the trembling dog, speaking softly, repeating the same phrase. This time, she added something else, a simple reassurance, the kind spoken to frightened children and injured animals alike. Rex collapsed beside her. Only then did anyone realize how exhausted he was. His body shook violently, adrenaline draining away now that his handler was no longer being taken from him by strangers. Emma gently examined his wounds while veterinary staff were summoned. The dog never took his eyes off the doors where Mercer had disappeared. Hours passed. Surgery stretched longer than expected. Internal bleeding had been severe. Surgeons fought to stabilize damage near the spine. There were moments when hope nearly slipped away entirely. Emma stayed with Rex the entire time. She cleaned his wounds. She wrapped his shoulder. She offered water, which he refused until she repeated the code phrase again, at which point he finally drank. Staff rotated shifts, but Emma remained, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside him, occasionally resting her hand on his back. Late that night, a senior officer approached her. That was when the truth emerged. Emma's older brother, Jacob Carter, had been a Navy SEAL. He had died 3 years earlier during an overseas operation. Before his last deployment, he had visited Emma during her nursing school finals, bringing along his K-9 partner. He had proudly explained the commands, the codes, the trust between dog and handler. He had joked that if she ever met one of his guys, she should remember the phrase because it meant everything was okay. She had never expected to use it. And she had never told anyone at the hospital about her brother. When Mercer finally emerged from surgery the next morning, he was alive, critical, but stable. The prognosis was uncertain. Recovery would be long. There were risks of permanent damage. But he had survived. Rex sensed it before anyone told him. The moment Mercer was moved into intensive care, the dog's entire posture changed. His tail gave a small, tentative wag. He leaned against Emma's leg, then looked toward the ICU doors with renewed focus. Over the following weeks, Emma became part of Mercer's recovery whether she intended to or not. Rex refused to leave the hospital. Special permissions were arranged. A makeshift resting area was created near Mercer's room. Emma visited during every shift she had, sometimes just sitting quietly while machines beeped and Mercer remained unconscious. Then one afternoon, Mercer opened his eyes. It wasn't dramatic. No sudden movements, no emotional declarations. Just a slow blink, confusion, pain, and the realization that he was alive. Rex noticed instantly. The dog sprang to his feet, whining softly, tail wagging so hard his entire body shook. Nurses rushed in as monitors spiked with activity. Mercer's gaze struggled to focus, but when it finally landed on Rex, something shifted, relief, recognition, connection. Tears slid from the corners of his eyes. Recovery was brutal. Physical therapy sessions left Mercer drenched in sweat and frustration. Nerve damage created setbacks. There were days he wanted to quit. Days he stared at the ceiling with hollow exhaustion. Rex stayed beside him through all of it. And so did Emma. Their bond grew quietly, built on shared grief and understanding neither needed to explain. Mercer learned about Jacob. Emma learned about the mission that had nearly killed him, and the moment Rex had dragged him to extraction despite his own injuries. Months later, Mercer took his first unassisted steps. The hospital hallway erupted in applause. Rex barked excitedly, circling him with pure joy. Emma cried openly. Before we reach the ending, I want to ask you something special. Please comment the word loyalty if you believe bonds like this can change lives. Your comment helps more people see stories that matter. The day Mercer was discharged, he walked out of the hospital with Rex at his side and Emma nearby, sunlight spilling across the pavement like a new beginning. He still carried scars. He still faced a long road ahead. But he was alive, because a dog refused to leave him, and because a nurse remembered a phrase her brother once taught her. Sometimes heroes wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear scrubs. Sometimes they have 4 legs and fur. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs inspiration today, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach people who might be losing hope, and sometimes, hope is exactly what saves a life. Because in the end, loyalty isn't just about staying. It's about refusing to let someone face the darkness alone.